Evening. It is now before us to consider the report of the General Committee on matters that were remitted to them, and I give the floor to Abdullah Skarid in representation of St. Kitts as the rapporteur. Mr. Rapporteur, you have the floor.
Mr. President, as rapporteur of the General Committee, I have the honor to present to this plenary a summary of the work carried out by the General Committee during the 56th regular session of the General Assembly. This plenary installed the General Committee in its first session and elected Ambassador Alejandra Solana Cabelceta, permanent representative of Costa Rica to the OAS, as its chair. The committee subsequently elected by acclamation Ms. Catalina Vera, alternate representative of Chile to the OAS, as vice chair, and me as rapporteur. The plenary referred 4 documents to the General Committee. During its consideration of those matters, however, the committee agreed at the request of the delegation of Panama to place the draft Declaration of Panama, previously considered within the framework of the Permanent Council, document AG/Doc 5923/26, with the revised text submitted by the delegation of Panama during the General Assembly and published as document AG/Doc 5931/26. Consequently, the committee considered that revised text as the declaration before it and agreed to consider only the draft declaration published under the document AG/Doc 5931/26. Given the limited time available, the committee adopted a methodology focused on paragraphs pending approval and proposals for compromise language, which enable delegations to engage in efficient and constructive negotiations. The committee met for 2 hours and 52 minutes on June 23, and from 8 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. on June 24 to consider the matters entrusted to it. Before presenting information regarding the consideration of the documents assigned to the General Committee, I would like to convey the recognition expressed by delegations within the committee to women diplomats, as today, June 24, marks the International Day of Women in Diplomacy. I would now like to address matters related to documents considered by the committee. With respect to the draft resolution, Situation of the Plurinational State of Bolivia, the committee considered it during its first and second sessions. During this time, the committee considered the proposals presented by the delegation of Bolivia, as well as the amendments submitted in writing and published in the 6th addenda to document AG/Doc 5934/26. After around 6 hours of negotiations, this afternoon at 12:22, the committee agreed on the draft resolution with the 5th operative paragraph remaining at referendum of the delegation of the United States. Then, this evening, the delegation of Bolivia presented an amendment to the 5th operative paragraph, which was agreed by the committee. The document agreed upon by the committee was published as document AG/CG/Doc 3/26 Rev 3 and transmitted it to the plenary for its consideration. Regarding the draft Declaration of Panama, firm multilateralism in defense of democracy, hemispheric security and stability in the American states, and as mentioned earlier, the committee considered the text contained in document AG/Doc 5931/26, which incorporated both the paragraphs previously agreed upon within the framework of the Permanent Council and a number of compromise proposals submitted by Panama to facilitate consensus. The delegations considered this document during the formal meeting as well as in informal consultations. Following its consideration, the General Committee agreed on the draft declaration as presented by the delegation of Panama, contained in document AG/Doc 5931/26, with an addition presented by the delegation of Haiti, a paragraph that had been already considered during the negotiations within the framework of the Permanent Council, as well as the amendments presented by the delegation of Chile to preambular paragraphs 4 and 9, which resulted from informal consultations. The draft declaration agreed upon by the General Committee was published as document AG/CG/Doc 5/26 and elevated it to the plenary for its consideration. I would like to highlight that the following delegations announced footnotes or reserved their right to submit footnotes. The delegation of the United States announced its footnotes to the preambular paragraph 10 and 11, as well as operative paragraphs 4, 5, and 12. It also announced its right to present a footnote for the 9th preambular paragraph. The delegations of El Salvador and Paraguay announced their respective footnotes to preambular paragraph 9. The delegation of Argentina, Bolivia, and Colombia informed that they reserve their rights to present footnotes to this draft declaration. The delegations of Brazil, Mexico, and Uruguay mentioned that they will include a footnote for the entire draft declaration. Mr. President, the committee also considered the draft resolution on the installation of the Credentials Committee of the Organization of American States. First, the Declaration of the Bahamas presented the proposals published as document AG/CG/Doc 2/26. Then the committee reviewed the remaining pending provisions. Following several rounds of formal and informal consultations, the General Committee agreed on the draft resolution on the installation of the Credentials Committee, which will be open-ended. The document agreed upon by the General Committee and elevated to the plenary was published as document AG/CG/Doc 4/26. I would like to note that, as requested by the delegation of Jamaica, after the committee agreed on its document, the following text will be included in the records of the meeting. The delegation of Jamaica requested that the records of the meeting reflect that the second paragraph of the draft resolution should not read, notwithstanding paragraph 2 of AG/Res 3040, because a provision approved by the General Assembly in 2025 cannot be amended in that manner. In this regard, the delegation indicated that the paragraph should read, acknowledging paragraph 2 of AG/Res 3040, which is hereby amended to provide the Committee on Credentials shall consist of all member states wishing to serve on the committee. Mr. President, under the capable leadership of its chair and vice chair, the General Committee completed the consideration of all matters entrusted to it and approved the following documents that are being submitted to this plenary for its consideration. Draft Declaration of Panama, firm multilateralism in defense of democracy, hemispheric security and stability in the American states, document AG/CG/Doc 5/26. Draft resolution, situation in the plurinational state of Bolivia, document AG/CG/Doc Doc 3/26, Rev 3, and draft resolution installation of the Credentials Committee of the Organization of American States, document AG/CG/Doc 4/26. Before concluding, I wish to express my sincere appreciation to the Chair and Vice Chair, as well as to all delegations for their constructive engagement, flexibility, and commitment throughout the committee's work. I also extend my gratitude to the staff of the General Secretariat for their invaluable support. Thank you, Mr. President.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Mr. Rapporteur. The presidency expresses its appreciation to Ambassador Alejandra Solano, and I believe an applause is in order. The permanent representative of Costa Rica to the OAS and the chair of the General Committee. Also, thanks to Ms. Catalina Vera, permanent representative of Chile to the OAS and vice president of the General Committee, vice chair of the General Committee. To Mr. Abdullah Skerrit, alternate representative of St. Kitts and Nevis to the OAS and rapporteur of the General Committee, as well as all delegations that contributed to the work of the General Committee. Having heard the report presented, I now ask delegations whether we can consider the following documents adopted. Draft Declaration of Panama, firm multilateralism in defense of democracy. Approved. Thank you. Draft resolution on the situation in the plurinational state of Bolivia. Approved. Adopted. Draft resolution, installation of the Credentials Committee of the Organization of American States. I offer the floor to any delegations who would wish to refer to the documents that have been recently approved. Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, fellow foreign ministers and heads of delegation, on behalf of the plurinational state of Bolivia, let me express our sincere appreciation to the member states of the organization for approving the resolution that we have just adopted. Bolivia receives this declaration over the last few weeks. As you know, we have lived through difficult moments affecting and threatening the institutional stability and the exercise of fundamental rights of millions of Bolivian citizens. For this reason, the support expressed by this Assembly is of particular significance to the people of Bolivia. This resolution does not represent only a gesture of solidarity with Bolivia. It represents, doubtless, a reaffirmation of the commonly shared principles such as the defense of democracy and the rule of law, human rights, and a peaceful resolution of disputes. We wish to thank all the member states present for their contribution and the expression of their support to those member states who have extended humanitarian assistance. Thank you very much. And those who have made it possible for this organization to respond effectively to the crisis facing our people. Bolivia accepts this with great humility and responsibility because as our President Rodrigo Paz has reiterated on numerous occasions, everything must be done within democracy and nothing outside of democracy. Thank you. Thank you, Bolivia. Panama, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Mr. President. I would like to reiterate what we said in the General Committee. The deep thanks from the Republic of Panama for the nutritious participation, the quite rich participation that we have had at this 56th General Assembly here in our country. It truly honors us to have you here on the 200th bicentennial of the Panamanian Congress. especially for the President, we believe it is timely to thank you for the approval of the Declaration of Panama. There was a little bit of a struggle there. You know how it is. But eventually, we produced a declaration which brings together principles, values that are key for all the peoples of Americas. So it is to our utmost satisfaction, Mr. President, and our joy that on the bicentennial of the Amphictyonic Congress, we are here to revisit, to recover, and to highlight the principles that encouraged the first American States Assembly on our isthmus 200 years ago. I would like to reiterate on behalf of Panama our deep thanks to all delegates and to the General Secretary, the Assistant General Secretary, and the head table for all of your support and for this moment, which will be recorded in history forever. Thank you very much, Mr. President. We'll pass the floor to the United States.
Thank you, Chair. We appreciate the General Assembly time to address the crisis in Nicaragua and thank Canada and Chile for shepherding today's text through negotiation as co-chairs of the OAS voluntary group on Nicaragua. The passage of this declaration demonstrates our region's condemnation of the Murillo-Ortega dictatorship and its egregious human rights violation and destabilization of the hemisphere as a whole. Since 2018, Rosario Murillo and Daniel Ortega have transformed Nicaragua into a dynastic police state. In 2025, the legislative goons rewrote the Constitution to elevate Murillo to co-president without even the pretense of an election. The dictators have silenced, exiled, and jailed under horrific conditions thousands of real and perceived opponents, including American citizens. Unjust arrests continue unabated, and authorities subject released political prisoners to constant police surveillance, harassment, and movement limitations. Religious freedom violations persist. The dictatorship forcibly exiled, expelled, and denied re-entry into Nicaragua of more than 300 clergy and nuns. Half the country's bishops reside outside Nicaragua, and at least 51 priests face the possibility of statelessness. The recent death of political opposition leader Brooklyn Rivera was a horrific tragedy. He should still be alive. The United States holds the Murillo-Ortega dictatorship singularly responsible for his death. We condemn the arrest and imprisonment of Rivera's family members and call for the release of all unjustly detained political prisoners. Today's declaration rightly emphasizes these points. Nearly a year ago to the day, assailants murdered Roberto Samken, living in exile in Costa Rica. The Murillo-Ortega dictatorship, which threatens the sovereignty of its neighbors in Central America. We condemn all instances of transnational repression of Nicaraguans and note with growing concern the dictatorship's increased harassment and violence against Nicaraguan journalists in exile. Mr. Chair, Samken and all Nicaraguans, both in country and in exile, deserve justice. Murillo and Ortega also stifle growth by confiscating property and businesses, including those belonging to U.S. citizens. No country can arbitrarily seize assets and expect economic opportunity and growth. As we underscored in the process of developing today's text, the United States objects to the inclusion of reference to the United Nations Human Rights Council, which has protected human rights abuses and allowed them to use the organization to shield themselves from scrutiny. Given the Murillo-Ortega dictatorship, failure to respect the Inter-American Democratic Charter, the United States also underscores the critical importance of ensuring conditions of representative democracy are met prior to any consideration of Nicaragua possibly returning to the OAS. Nicaragua must prove it has fully restored democratic institutions and demonstrate its good faith commitment to restoring respect for human rights. The Democratic Charter provides provides the clear framework for that assessment. We lament that the Murillo-Ortega dictatorship has moved Nicaragua further and further from the conditions of democracy and bind us together as members of this organization. We plan to make our expectations in this respect clear with a footnote in the text. As indicated in the declaration, the U.S. will submit our footnote in due course to the Secretariat to address our views. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Gracias.
Thank you, United States. Guatemala, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. President. The Republic of Guatemala is pleased to receive the Declaration on Firm Multilateralism and Defense of Democracy. We wish to express our acknowledgement to the General Committee, to the Presidency, and to all of the member states for the efforts undertaken during this ordinary session of the General Assembly that made this declaration possible. However, we regret that in the final text there are not included some references for which there was growing consensus among member states, particularly those relative to the principles enshrined in the Charter of the Organization of American States, fundamental pillars of the inter-American system. In this regard, the Republic of Guatemala wishes to make note that this declaration will be subject to the international obligations of our country and the Constitution of Guatemala. Guatemala reiterates its firm commitment to progress in the area of human rights and defense of all persons without discrimination, in strict observance of the guarantees of the political constitution of our republic and international legal instruments ratified by our country. My delegation reasserts its commitment to continue working with member states and other international partners for the resolutions and declarations adopted at this General Assembly will ensure a dignified life for all of our peoples. Thank you.
Guatemala tiene la palabra.
Thank you, Guatemala. Mexico, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. President. Allow me to begin by expressing on behalf of the people and the government of Mexico our solidarity with Venezuela for the earthquake that happened today. Mexico, in the spirit of the Amphitryon Congress that was held in Panama, has decided to join the draft declaration on Panama issued here in Panama, but we also wish to make note that there are substantive elements that are indispensable and are missing in this draft declaration to reflect a firm multilateralism that is effective and capable to address the challenges in our hemisphere. Firm multilateralism for Mexico is the kind of multilateralism where the defense of democracy is linked to the full respect for human rights, sovereignty, non-intervention, the peaceful resolution of disputes, the promotion and protection of human rights, integral development, equality, social justice, and cooperation between equals. Mexico notes that the government, which we have agreed, omits references to progressive development of human rights, including substantive gender equality, the full and equal and significant participation of women, as well as an acknowledgement of the rights of Afro-descendant persons, indigenous people, disabled persons, LGBTQ persons, and other historically excluded or vulnerable persons. Mr. President, as we have acknowledged in multiple resolutions and declarations, we must understand our work within the context of cooperation and development and shared responsibility, and not from a logic of pure security. Addressing this must include the structural consideration of the structural causes of inequality and the promotion of an ordered an ordered addressing of the situation facing migrants and persons who are in migration situations through third countries. The declaration does not clearly define or address some of the threats addressing hemispheric security and the democratic stability of American states, such as illicit arms trafficking, munitions, and other material related to arms trafficking. Doubtless, criminal organizations have the capacity to work across borders and to threaten communities, to attack institutions, and sustain illicit economies. The omission of any clear reference to illegal arms trafficking will not eliminate the gravity or the reality of this threat. On the contrary, to make it invisible diminishes our collective capacity to build effective responses that are balanced and based on shared responsibilities, as well as the legal inter-American instruments that we have adopted together. As is recognized by the consultative opinion of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, member states have the obligation legally of acting due active diligence to prevent the illicit trafficking of arms, and has characterized this as a structural problem affecting the defense of human rights in the Americas. It is also widely recognized by a majority of member states of this organization in the Inter-American Convention against the transit and illegal trafficking of firearms and related material. Mexico hopes that the declaration adopted here will not anticipate that further texts will not be done in a spirit of dialogue and cooperation, and will incorporate elements that, in the view of my delegation, have been omitted and are still part, nonetheless, of the legal heritage that over many decades we have built, and reflect the friendship between our countries and member states. Thank you.
Gracias, México.
Thank you, Mexico. We pass the floor to the Bahamas.
Chair, the delegation of the Bahamas wishes to express its sincere appreciation to all member states for their engagement, patience, and commitment throughout this process in respect of the establishment of the Credentials Committee. The adoption of this resolution marks the culmination of a long and at times arduous journey, yet it was a necessary one. From the outset, the objective of the Credentials Committee has been clear: to provide the organization with an institutional mechanism through which member states may collectively review and advise on the credentials of delegations and representatives accredited to the political organs of this organization. This was never about any particular member state, government, or circumstance. It was about strengthening the governance architecture of the organization and ensuring that a responsibility touching upon representation, legitimacy, and participation within our political organs is exercised through an established institutional process. For many years, the review of credentials evolved largely as an administrative function. Through resolution AG Res 3040 and now through the adoption of this resolution, member states have affirmed that credentials are also a matter of governance and that they warrant a dedicated mechanism and clear rules and procedures. The Bahamas therefore welcomes the installation of the Credentials Committee as an advisory body that will assist member states in carrying out this vital function. Institution building is rarely easy. Progress within multilateral organizations often requires patience, compromise, and perseverance. While views differ on aspects of implementation, member states remain united in the broader objective of strengthening the institution and the framework for this organization. Indeed, today's decision demonstrates an important principle. Consensus is not unanimity. Rather, it reflects the collective willingness of member states to find sufficient common ground in pursuit of the greater good of the organization. The Bahamas therefore welcomes this important step forward and looks forward to the committee commencing its work as soon as possible. In so doing, we strengthen transparency, reinforce accountability, and further enhance member state stewardship of the Organization of American States. Chair, I thank you, and I thank this Assembly for its kind attention.
No hay más delegaciones.
Are there any other delegations who would like to speak? We will move then into United States.
Thank you, Chair. United States has a footnote I would like to add to our intention to submit a footnote to the resolution on the installation of the Credentials Committee. Text to follow. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Would any other delegation like to participate? Understood. We move then into the consideration of the location and date for the 57th regular session of the General Assembly, according to Articles 30, Section C, and 44 of the regulation. I will inform you that we have not received any offer for member states to be the location. So according to our regulations, the 57th regular session will be held at the Secretary General's location. A date will be determined by the Permanent Council, preferably during the second quarter of 2027. However, in accordance with what we have established in the same article, if any member state presents an offer to be the location for the next General Assembly within 6 months or with 6 months of warning, the Permanent Council can decide to hold it in that country. If there are no observations, it is approved.
Chile tiene la palabra.
We pass the floor to Chile. Thank you, Chair, and to all of our distinguished colleagues, to everyone present with us here today. I would like to read the next draft resolution. With thanks to the government and people of the Republic of Panama, the development of the General Assembly at its 56th General Assembly in the city of Panama from the 22nd to the 24th of June 2026 recognized the special initiative of Panama to receive these sessions with the goal of combining this General Assembly with the 200th anniversary of the Panamanian Congress of 1826, held by the liberator Simón Bolívar, which was the genesis of multilateralism on the American continent and inspires us to organize as American states. Considering that in this framework of historic meaning, the delegates of the member states, permanent observers, and international organizations and other stakeholders meet together in an environment that is optimum for frank and respectful, constructive dialogue focused on building a hemispheric agenda and highlighting the very warm and generous welcome that has been given us by the people of the Republic of Panama, who ensured success in the deliberations of the supreme body of this organization, we do hereby resolve that 1. We express our thanks to His Excellency Don Jose Raul Mulino, President of the Republic of Panama, and the people of Panama for their warm and generous hospitality provided to the participants of the 56th regular session of the General Assembly. 2, to express our thanks to His Excellency Don Javier Martinez Hacha Vasquez, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Panama, for his visionary leadership and political commitment in preparation and strategic direction for the General Assembly, as well as his hard work as chair of the 56th regular session. We would also like to express our thanks to His Excellency Juan Carlos Meran, Vice Minister of Multilateral Issues and Cooperation in Panama. Of course, Ambassador Doña Ana Irene Delgado, Permanent Representative of Panama before the OAS. The members of the Panamanian Permanent Mission and staff members of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who with exceptional efficiency, dedication, and professionalism have contributed to the successful development of these activities at our 56th General Assembly. Point 4, providing clear recognition for the hard work done by the General Secretariat of the Organization of American States, whose operational and technical supports in preparation and development were fundamental for the successful organization of the 56th regular session of the General Assembly. Thank you very much, Mr. President, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Chile, from the bottom of my heart. I would like to present for approval the Declaration of Chile. Thank you very much. Having then concluded about the location for the 57th, the General Assembly, we can continue on to our closing words. Ladies and gentlemen, heads of delegation of the member states of the Organization of American States, General Secretary of the OAS, Assistant General Secretary of the OAS, ladies and gentlemen, representatives of permanent observers, representatives of international organizations, representatives of civil society and other social stakeholder organizations, ladies and gentlemen, I declare open the closing session of the 56th regular session of the General Assembly of the Organization of American States. Having concluded these 3 days of constructive dialogue around the main challenges that we face in our hemisphere, it is time to formalize the closure of our work. Before I finish, I would like to say that the OAS and this assembly express profound solidarity to the Venezuelan Republic, which have suffered a serious earthquake which has caused damage to infrastructure, to buildings, and to people in a difficult situation for people in Caracas and surrounding areas. In this moment of uncertainty, the OAS extends fraternity, hope, and support to all of the families that are waiting for news from their loved ones. We reaffirm our historic Latin American connections, and we highlight the brotherhood that connects our peoples. And we hope to support soon with any humanitarian needs in the affected communities. Having observed that the protocol, I know that you want to rest. Having concluded the 56th General Assembly of the OAS, I would like to express some words from the President of Panama, and on behalf of myself, our deep thanks to the member states, to the General Secretary, to the international organizations, to the technical teams, to all who supported in the success of this very important hemispheric meeting. Panama has been distinguished to receive this meeting of the Americas at an important moment, the 200th anniversary of the Amphictyonic Congress in 1826. 200 years ago, something extraordinary happened here. Latin America was able to create dialogue and to build a common destiny. 200 years later, it continues to inspire our nations to strengthen peace, democracy, development, and integration. The delegates have had a frank and respectful dialogue about the challenges that face our hemisphere, and we are looking forward to adopting important declarations and resolutions that strengthen the inter-American system. This assembly has shown that even in a complex international environment marked by deep geopolitical changes, economic challenges, unprecedented migratory movements, and the effects of climate change, the Americas continues to dialogue and to cooperate and to use those tools to find shared solutions. Panama takes on its responsibility as host country with the firm purpose of creating spaces for meeting, understanding, and working together. It is, suffice it to say, we have achieved that goal. We are committed to democracy, to human rights, to hemispheric security, to intelligent integral development, to prosperity, to strengthening multilateralism as a useful, indispensable tool for facing the challenges of the present and the future. We are also pleased that the bicentennial of the Amphictyonic Congress has allowed us to face international cooperation and reinforce the value of multilateralism. These days have been important to strengthen response capacity for the inter-American system as we look to the challenges of the present and the future. More than just agreements and resolutions, we have learned something important. This reminds us that history is not just a memory. History is responsibility. Because we find ourselves in the land where the Panamanian Congress of 1826 was held, I would like to give you a quick historical reflection. Imagine that in this city, in Panama, imagine if Simón Bolívar were here in our sessions where we debate our future. He would see the flags and he would understand the continent is different than the one that he knew, but it is united by transcendental challenges. We have had the responsibility to bring in key people. And what would Simón Bolívar say to us? 200 years after his Congress, our nations have finally understood that our destination is joined by something more than geography. What would Simón Bolívar say? This is something that requires citizen support.
La seguridad y el desarrollo.
We believe that Democracy cannot be built in isolation, and no country can prosper in isolation. Luis Almagro then added, "We understand that freedom and human rights and democracy require constant vigilance and the determination to defend the principles undergirding democracy." And finally, Albert would say, representing the future, would take the future, if the future would take the floor, we would know that the challenges of the 21st century will require the protection of the planet, migration, inequality, technological innovation, and transnational threats. Remind us that no state may face the challenges of today alone. And only one ideal is for us to work together. I hope I copied that correctly. Bolivar would listen carefully to all of these remarks, and then he would look to the Americas and would respond. Then the cause of our Congress is alive. The challenges have changed, but the mission remains the same. We must fight for the independence of our nations, but we must also fight to preserve human dignity, freedom, and to build prosperity for our peoples. Bolivar would remind us, remember always, that no nation is so powerful that it does not need others, and never so small that it doesn't have something valuable to contribute to our common destiny. These five men would keep silent, and then Bolivar would say words that can transcend centuries. Don't allow circumstantial differences destroy the permanent interests that we share. This dialogue has existed over the history of Americas and illustrates that the peoples of the Americas are stronger when we understand that we must not operate, that sovereignty is not threatened, but allows us to grow something together. Unity means that we must move forward together. And Bolivar, before leaving, would again say, in looking at Panama, 200 years ago, we planted the seed in this land that is now up to you today to make it part of our legacy. Because many generations and countries can inherit people and wealth, but only a visionary people can give purpose to a country. Distinguished delegates, this still lives on in each bridge that we build, in each people, in each shared effort to ensure a free hemisphere, more democratic, safer, more inclusive, and more prosperous. From Panama, the bridge to the world, and the geographic heart of the Americas, we reaffirm our conviction that dialogue is still the safest path forward towards peace, that cooperation is the most effective tool for development, and multilateralism continues to be the best expression of our shared responsibility. Panama thanks the member states for their confidence and trust and reiterates our commitment to hemispheric integration, the strengthening of the inter-American system, and the construction of consensus for the benefit of our peoples. And from this land where Bolivar convened the Americas 200 years ago, we know that even with the passage of time, countries that dialogue together build a future. Nations that cooperate generate prosperity, and nations that respect each other ensure peace. When future generations remember this 200th anniversary, they can say that these countries not only honored their history, but had the wisdom and will to ensure the future. Because over these centuries, we will remember less our differences than our capacity to come together, and because the spirit that was born in 1826 is still today a way forward for the Americas and a hope for our peoples. Thank you. now give the floor, as is traditional, to the Secretary General of the OAS, Albert Ramdin.
Mr. President, Minister Acha, distinguished ministers and heads of delegations, all delegates. If I speak too long, in a little bit more than 45 minutes, we would have to start a new procedure. So I will not speak for long. But I want to take this opportunity, as is customary, to say a few words. First of all, this General Assembly is historic in many ways. You have, as host country minister, combined a spirit of 200 years ago, 1826, with the notion of today and the needs of today. Throughout all the conversations, throughout all the presentations, there is one red thread, and that is the commitment to regional cooperation, the commitment to multilateralism, and the relevance of it in today's world. And that would certainly satisfy Simon Bolivar. There's much more to say. I think you have highlighted very well the notion of this important moment, historic in so many ways. We want to thank President Molino for not only this event, but for many other events planned before and executed already, and what is still to come in the rest of the year. Of course, we want to thank you, Minister Javier Acha, of leading us through and channeling serious discussions up to the last moment. And I'm happy that we're concluding in full consensus with all understandings. I want to include in the thanks through you the work that has been done in preparatory phase by Ambassador Vice Minister Gaviraman and your team, but also Vice Minister Uyos, a little bit more on the background, and of course Ambassador Delgado, your representative in Washington, D.C. But all the people from Panama who have worked on this project. It feels like next year we can come back, but I won't say anything more than that. I want to thank, especially as a great host, as a great chairperson, and with excellent arrangements in many ways, from all the lunches to all the meetings, all the side events, Minister Acha for his solid leadership in steering us to where we end today. Just before midnight, it's my honor now to present, as is customary, Minister, you with the flags of the Organization of American States, and that's a small token of our appreciation of the General Secretariat. And the General Secretariat has been, of course, also instrumental under the leadership of Assistant Secretary General Laura Hill and her team and the rest of the Secretariat in working with your teams to make this happen today. But the honor is to you, and for that I have the flags, which I would like to hand you over now. Okay, there it comes. Thank you. So it's as a great ceremony.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. Having concluded, then, the various items of our agenda, I now formally declare the end of our program of work for this 56th session, regular session of the General Assembly of the Organization of American States. The session is concluded. Thank you to all of you.
and thank you for staying until the end at this hour of the night. We want to welcome you to the closing of the 56th General Assembly of the OAS. We have the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Javier Martinez Albert Randing, and also the Assistant General Secretary, Ms. Laura Hill. First, the authorities will be speaking in English and Spanish. We have interpretation available for those who need it, and for those who follow the streaming online, we have channels available for the original English, but also in English and Spanish. It is available in our website. And before I forget, in that same website, we will have available soon, or it is already available, the Declaration of Panama and all the resolutions that were approved. Let's begin with the initial intervention of our authorities, and then we'll open the floor for questions from the media. Mr. Chancellor, the floor is yours. Good evening, dear reporters. Thank you for waiting. I will try to summarize what has been a fantastic week for Panama and for the OAS. First of all, thank you. And thanks to the OAS General Secretary and the Executive Secretary and their entire team. Thanks to my team in the Chancellor's office and the unnamed heroes, Carlos Alemán, Maria Alejandra Exman, and all the staff that has supported me in this titanic effort that took months to prepare. But most of all, thanks to the President of the Republic for believing in this initiative. We were able to bring it together with the celebration of the amphitronic conference on the bicentennial. Multiple authorities have worked for this to be successful. Law enforcement, Ministry of Security, Ministry of Health, and many more that I am sure I'll forget. But to all of them, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Panama has been a great facilitator. I don't want to say protagonist, but a great facilitator. The role of Panama as host has been confirmed, and we came to a consensus after several conditions we agreed upon. Of course, some countries are firm in the defense of their government and their ideals, and we respect that, but we came to multiple consensus in different matters. We have to highlight the logistic consensus and political consensus of the Assembly, and we respect the dialogues that took place with the members of the OAS. I'll repeat, it's been a successful assembly in a complex international context with different visions. And I can say that we have preserved and we have strengthened the dialogue spaces amongst the countries of our hemisphere. We presented results even when we thought that it was going to be difficult. And that's why this press conference is taking place at this time. But those countries that had strong opinions still allowed us to come to a consensus. The OAS, this year in its General Assembly and the bicentennial, have allowed us to reflect on how to strengthen international cooperation in the face of important challenges. I would dare say that where there is no doubt is the fight against drug trafficking and international crime. Of course, sustainable development and the protection of our planet and the defense of democracy. And one of the points agreed upon was for the OAS to send to Bolivia a high-level mission led by the General Secretary and chancellors from the OAS to provide support to the Bolivian democracy. Therefore, the OAS has made a symbolic contribution. Simón Bolívar believed in the Republic, and we think that the OAS can give Bolivia reinforcement to defend their democracy. The resolutions approved were adopted by the Assembly. They were discussed, and the work foundation was very solid. And I want to thank those who have adopted the Declaration of Panama. It will be shared with all. And I want to get ahead of some questions about the consensus of differences. Like it happens in any multilateral forum, we discussed multiple matters, but overall it was very positive because we worked with dialogue, cooperation, and respect. The OAS is stronger. There's still no host for next year. I would like to volunteer Panama, but I have to ask for permission to my president. But we're happy because in Panama we did what we know how to do best. We connect ideas, we understand each other, and we cooperate in the search of solutions. We know this is important also for the economy of the city, and we can see it in the hotels, restaurants, transportation, so we can say that the investment made by the country was returned. That's all for me. Thank you. Thank you, Chancellor. Dear General Secretary.
Good evening. I'd like to start, first of all, with a message to the people of Venezuela, to express our solidarity to the people and government of Venezuela and Colombia as well as Curaçao and Aruba, who suffered a devastating earthquake in the last hours and the impact of it. At this point, not much is known, but the hemispheric community will be ready to support the people of Venezuela in these difficult times. I wanted to share that with you up front. Mr. Minister, Assistant Secretary General, I want to begin by really saying how grateful the hemisphere is with the hosting by Panama of this historic event. And historic in many ways. Panama has combined 200 years of Simón Bolívar's initiative here in Panama with this General Assembly. It becomes historic because it is the right time to have this General Assembly with that in mind. That same spirit of unity, of collaboration, of one Americas, that was the spirit of Simón Bolívar. Lot has happened since then, but I think reaffirming that here, that notion of collectivity, of unity in the Americas, is an historic aspect, that we could do that again. In a way, I feel that we have made a new start for the hemisphere, and it will be good for the hemisphere. So Panama is the face of that. So this General Assembly was timely, important, necessary, and to be honest, I have been to many General Assemblies. I won't tell you how many, but many. And this is one of the few times that we have seen such a high turnout for a General Assembly at the level of the foreign ministers and at the level of delegations, 22 ministers, 4 vice ministers, 1 permanent representatives, so many permanent observers, the media attention, and civil society and the private sector. That was impressive, but it tells us the story as well that there was a need. There was a need to have this discussion. And those discussions were serious throughout all the discussions. In my view, the message was clear that multilateralism is important, that we need to work together, that the relevance of the Organization of American States, independent of the flaws, independent of the shortcomings of an organization and hemispheric body, that the relevance of the OAS is there. And the goal must be to expand that democratic space which the OAS represents, because that's in our charter, to include all the countries where there is not such a democracy. That will be, in fact, the goal for the coming years. So from a political perspective, from an institutional perspective, from a hemispheric perspective, this has been an historic moment. And I thank Panama Minister Acha, but also, of course, President Molino for this initiative. The details about all the delegations which came and how many meetings were held and so on, that you will receive may be separate from our department. During this conference, another important element took place. Another important event took place, and that is the second round of elections in Colombia, the presidential elections. Today, we expressed our congratulations to Abelardo de la Espriella for winning the presidential election in Colombia. We look very much forward to working with him and his government, as we acknowledge that there is need for strong engagement with the leadership in every single country. At the same time, we express our thanks to the other candidate, Mr. Ivan Cepeda, for graciously accepting the outcome, although the difference was very small. And that is a great sign of strong democracies to do that. I'm not going to speak too much in terms of the substance, but I want to mention a couple of issues that were addressed so that you have an understanding about the relevance, the depth of the discussions ministers produced. Lots of attention to threats to democracy and human rights were discussed. Insecurity, transnational organized crime and violence, migration issues, economic uncertainty and inequality, climate vulnerability and natural disasters, mental health issues, digital transformation and the need for connectivity, and the continued suffering of the Haitian people, apart from the situation in Venezuela, in Nicaragua, and in Cuba. We have ongoing election processes, as we said, one completed in Colombia, but Peru is still outstanding, and there are a couple of elections going to take place. I believe that, Minister, the conclusion we can draw from all the speeches were held about these topics were that we must strengthen dialogue and diplomacy in our hemisphere. We must defend democracy and human rights with firm, consistent, and credible actions. We must address security in a comprehensive manner and with regional cooperation. I'm very pleased to say that in collaboration with Minister Acha and with the permission from President Molino, before the end of the year, there will be a hemispheric conference here in Panama on transnational organized crime. One of the key challenges in our hemisphere currently affecting every single country. So that conference scheduled for the third quarter of this year here in Panama. And that will be a major moment to talk about something which is relevant to the whole hemisphere, for the people, for business, for stability, and for governance. Two last points which came, in my view, very much through is sustainable development, especially small and vulnerable economies need lots of assistance, and especially in the private sector forum that came across. And the last point has to do with the OAS itself, the Organization of American States. I think, generally speaking, everybody, all member states believe that the OAS must be modernized, innovated, but also strengthened. But they believe in the OAS as the principal multilateral institution in the hemisphere is without any doubt. We have heard that in all the speeches. So I think we conclude this meeting in a very optimistic way with a future that promises a lot. And the commitment of the General Secretary of the OAS is certainly to work towards that end, to the surface and in the service of the people of the Americas and the member states. Muchísimas gracias, and we'll be.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary General. Assistant Secretary General, Secretary General Junta.
Good morning. Good evening. I take the floor to reiterate my gratitude, Mr. Chancellor, which thank you very much, to Vice Minister Guevara Mine, the Ambassador Annie Beni Delgado, and to everyone that worked from the Chancellor and from our team in the OAS in order to be able to have this here. And for those who are in the booth, their technicians, the audio specialists, the interpreters, we have not seen them. However, we know that these are the people that have allowed this event to be a success. Thank you very much. To the volunteers from Panama, from the security team, liaisons, for the General Service team, we highly appreciate your work. The Assembly adopted 4 declarations and 14 resolutions. We would like to highlight the resolution regarding the situation of plurinationalism in Bolivia, and of course the Declaration of Panama, a firm multilateralism in the defense of democracy, the hemispheric security, and the stability of the American states, as well as the declaration regarding the situation of Nicaragua and the resolution regarding the situation in Haiti. The Assembly chose, by consensus, 3 members from the Inter-American Judicial Committee, 1 member from the Administrative Tribunal, 1 member from the Audit Committee, and 3 members of the Center of Justice Study of the Americas. 331 delegates engaged out of 32 member states, and 171 members out of 37 observers that are permanent observers, 96 delegates from international agencies, and 390 representatives from the civil society and social stakeholders. During our dialogues with civil society, we have proven a new format that is going to be assessed with the different representatives of civil society with the different states. Therefore, we would like to highly request your comments and feedbacks. We listened to different participants from 25 different coalitions of the civil society and human rights, and different delegates from our member states. In the walls where we negotiated the text, as well as the plenary session room, you saw different works of art, an exhibition that comes directly from the Contemporary Art Museum and the Museum of the Americas of the OAS. We brought a total of 28 work of arts from Panamanians for this exhibition, and this will be transferred tomorrow to the City of Arts, in which we are going to inaugurate an exhibition on June the 27th. We're also going to bring material from our archives of the Colón Library, and there you will be able to see the medals of one of the centennial that was developed by one of Roberto Lewis and a letter from Simon Bolivar. We hope to see you there in the City of Arts with the Minister of Art, Ms. Maruja Herrera. To conclude, I would like to say the following. According to the OAS Charter, my role plays an important role as a permanent secretary of the political committees of the organizations. And when I'm in Washington, I listen to the member states. And regardless of the differences that I hear, I still believe that we have achieved consensus, and there is consensus. And today, where multilateralism is questioned, where citizenships are living a situation of distrust, where there's been distrust in their own institutions and, of course, to multilateral agencies also. I think there is an importance in multilateralism. Not only it should be spoken, but also should be shown with our results. That entails not to be an ostrich where we bring or dig our face under the sand, but also addressing the critiques, to look into what we have done well and wrong, and to correct with a constructive spirit along with the member states and our people from our nation. That is the reason why the General Secretary talks about a renewed OAS, an OAS that comes back to those principles of accountability, transparency, and that has a closeness to the governments and above all to the people of the Americas. Then we are working toward that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ASG. Now we're going to move on to the questions. Please raise your hand. Please identify yourself and then follow with the question. Good morning, I'm Laura Castilla from Telemetro for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Could you kindly talk a bit about what is the main focus of the Declaration of Panama? And to our citizens, what is the impact of this to our nation? The Declaration of Panama is quite vast. It highlights the historical role of our country throughout the years, the defense of the principles of the OAS, multilateralism, cooperation. It also seeks to defend or protect human rights, and above all, to be a catalyst where all members or states of the OAS can come to an understanding that regardless how strong a country could be or how robust it stands, there is no way one country can bring solution to all the different problems. And this also applies to small countries. Small countries have a lot to contribute. There was one chancellor from the Caribbean that said something wonderful, and I will quote. He said the following: those who believe that the small countries have nothing to contribute in multilateralism, I hope they never spend one night in a dark room with a lot of warm temperature and mosquitoes. We would like to share with you the Declaration of Panama so you can have this before you. I can tell you that it did take some time. We needed to listen to all the different countries. All the different countries have their different priorities as a government. We had several sessions or meetings, and we achieved great consensus. Thank you very much, Chancellor. We have another question from the audience. Good evening. My name is Alba Solis. I'm a journalist from AAP. A lot of things have been spoken about and several critiques have been launched against multilateralism. And during our sessions, we have heard the countries or the delegates from the countries to move from just speaking to taking action. You have spoken about the OAS and how the OAS is more stronger. But could you explain this a little bit further? How does OAS moves forward into action, and how do we truly defend the democracy? And that was for the Secretary General, but for the Minister of Foreign Affairs, a useful multilateralism, what is that? Well, that is something that I touched upon the first day. I think you were not there. A useful multilateralism is the following. We are 32 member states, Albert, right? 32 members? Active.
En la ACE son más.
We have a lot more in the Latin American summit were even more. There are certain rules or laws that need to be followed in multilateral agencies to come into agreement among 30 countries on 30 items. It's hard, and we have also seen countries that it's hard for them to come in agreement into two. We have 30 that agree, and there are 2 that do not agree. And rules are rules, and we need to move forward. We need to tackle drug trafficking. We need to address cooperation, education, health, technology, investment, trade, etc., etc., etc. I am truly convinced that if we achieve 30 consensus, then why not move forward on those 30 consensus? I do hear a lot of critiques that people say we travel and we don't bring solutions to our people. However, that changed. And in fact, that changed recently in SICA. SICA had been blocked because it was said that we work as a whole or we don't work. We do work. And it has been placed into action because we have reached consensus. And that is a useful multilateralism. Some of the results of this assembly, they were already mentioned by the Secretary General. We are going to hold other meetings led by the Secretary General with the chancellors of the OAS. That was an idea that came or was proposed even by the President of Panama. So in this meeting, we will have chancellors from different countries, and we would like to hear the words of the different countries and also Bolivia because of their stance and the situation that's happening. What is something that must be mentioned is when there are radical positions because of ideology. Bolivia chose a president in a transparent and democratic activity, but now at this moment, it can't be that those who lost the election or those who weren't able to run in this election will need to block the democratic path to Bolivia. And that is something that is happening in Bolivia currently. Now, with Haiti, we held several meetings. We have reached consensus that we should continue to support Haiti and their institutions and security. We have concluded that the support given to Haiti is not being measured in time. We want to continue to support Haiti so they can reincorporate with the rest of the nations, having solid, robust institutions with elections that run with transparency and democracy, and for it to become a country that they deserve. That is what we want to better serve Bolivia and Haiti. Secretary General Albert?
Thank you very much for that question, and I'm happy you asked it because it is important. There is indeed skepsis, at a minimum, about multilateralism. And there is a reason for that. But before I go into the reason, I think it's important to note that when we speak about multilateralism, when Simón Bolívar, in his struggle for freedom and independence in the Western Hemisphere, was in trouble, he went to Jamaica. He asked for help from the then Emperor of Haiti, and he received support. So that is, in essence, multilateralism. It existed a long time before. We didn't call it that. We didn't even call it international cooperation, but it had to do with solidarity and shared principles. Freedom, independence, liberty. So for me, this is a given. In today's world, it's even more needed. So what we have seen over the past years is that international relations evolve over time. Our current international system is based on what happened after the Second World War. Since then, almost 75 years, we have lived in accordance with that rule-based, value-based international system, in which there was one key element, the respect for international law. In today's world, and in the past years, we see that not every country is willing to work along those lines. And that cannot continue. But something else will come in place. Because after so many years, you need to evaluate and put something new in place. What has to stay is respect for international law. In our case, that's a founding principle as well. Otherwise, it becomes a chaos. You need rules in a multilateral system to create predictability, to make sure that equality is guaranteed, and to make sure that there is no chaos. And this is where we are. Now, apart from the evolving circumstances, one way to get that skepsis away is to show the relevance, the work multilateral institutions do. And we have not done that well at the Organization of American States. For many years, we took it for granted that member states know what such a system does for them in terms of democracy, in terms of human rights, in terms of economic development, in the functional cooperation, in terms of scholarships, energy development, water management. These projects are ongoing, but we never tell the people, except those who are benefiting from it will know, but not the whole society. So this is something which we do now much more. And once we see that, you see also that trust starts growing in multilateralism. There's another reason why multilateralism is important. In today's world, more than ever, cross-border issues require countries to work together. Can you imagine two countries have a migration problem, but they don't talk to each other? How you will solve that problem? So you need to talk to each other. And a large part of the challenges which we face in today's world is cross-border in nature. Whether it's migration, whether it is trade, whether it is investments, whether it is crime, terrorism, trafficking, all those things. So we need to work together. That's a given. That's absolute. That's part of survival. So multilateral institutions are needed. There is also the element of solidarity, demonstrating solidarity with each other, helping each other. What we're doing now in Haiti is demonstrating solidarity. What we're doing with regard to supporting a constitutionally elected government in Bolivia is solidarity. In this case, even more. So we know that given all these issues, no country alone, on their own, no single country, whether they are very rich or not, can solve all the problems on their own, because they depend on other countries as well. So the notion must be there. We all work together. In 1948, 4 pillars were identified for the Organization of American States, on the same vision basically of what Simon Bolivar aimed for. Democracy, representative democracy, human rights, sustainable development, and multidimensional security. Those were the 4 pillars. One pillar was taken for granted and accepted as almost natural. In today's world, I think it's important to stress that point. regional cooperation, the commitment to regional cooperation. If all the countries and all the leaders understand that the commitment to regional cooperation is a pillar, then multilateralism will be strengthened as a way of making our lives safer, better, and with opportunities for all.
Quisiera tocar su tema. Ya tengo aquí la Declaración de Panamá.
Regarding the topic of the Declaration of Panama, dear journalists, we have the commitment of the member states on international commitments, strengthening democracy, because we know that democracy is a development of the human development and the respect of human right. The Declaration of Panama states that Panama is a country of consensus. This has been our history. The first Amphitronic Congress was held here in Panama, and it reaffirmed that useful multilateralism, the importance of fostering this efficient, useful multilateralism to promote a dialogue, the rule of law, the different letters from our charter that I think it celebrates its 25th anniversary, if I'm not mistaken. And we continue to work on a cooperation. It also talks about strengthening hemispheric cooperation in topics such as security, especially to tackle transnational organized crime. It also speaks about the different instruments used by the OAS, international law, and the international law of human rights, which will continue to work in order to tackle organized crime. A strategic partnership between the OAS and CAF, and it also talks about diplomacy and the peaceful settlement of disputes. And it also talks about the agreements and to international commitments. I'll be more than happy to forward this to you. Thank you very much, Chancellor. One more question, because some of us do need to sleep.
This is a question for General Secretary. I want to focus on the case of Nicaragua. It is a main concern. So which tools does the OAS or which mechanisms does the OAS have so that this declaration that was signed can have an impact in the life of Nicaraguans that are looking for a way to democracy following the trajectory of the regime in their country?
Thank you very much. And yes, many countries spoke about Nicaragua. The resolution was adopted. Let's start with saying that Nicaragua left the OAS some years ago. That's their right. And while they left the OAS, it doesn't mean that the obligations they have to provide for in terms of human rights, democracy, security, and development are gone. They can't separate that. At the same time also, they left the Organization of American States, which is their sovereign decision, but they did not leave the hemisphere. They stayed in the hemisphere because it's simply impossible to pick up your country and say, I'm leaving. That's what I call geography. We are bound by geography. So whatever happens in Nicaragua, whether it's in political terms, in economic terms, in terms of human rights, of other aspects which I will come to, it remains relevant for all of us within the inter-American system, simply because it will impact us. If something bad happens, really bad happens in Nicaragua, and the people start moving, not saying that it's happening, but if start migrating, the surrounding countries will be affected, Costa Rica and others. So I think Everybody understands that, hopefully. From that perspective, we have a responsibility as an Organization of American States still, even if they are not a member. That's why the resolution is adopted in the OAS. Now, looking at from another perspective is how do we help Nicaragua getting back to a representative democracy? First of all, we have called today, and we will continue to do that, as we do in the case of Venezuela and Cuba, for the release of unjustly detained political prisoners. And that is an unconditional request. It's not that they have to decide, it's simply they have to do it. Political prisoners should be released as soon as possible, unconditional, and have the right to participate in political life and social activism in the country. Beyond that, we will see how the developments are in the coming period, but any opportunity we have to engage with Nicaragua, and we do engage with Nicaragua, we will make the point that there is an issue domestically in Nicaragua that needs to be solved. There are several ways you can do that, but most importantly is, as in the most of the other cases like in Haiti, Venezuela, Cuba, it must be domestically led. It must be Nicaraguan led. So we will support those initiatives to get indigenous response to the poverty, to the mistreatment, the political isolation, the political persecution, and all of those things, and the human rights abuses which are there. I would hope that the Nicaraguan authorities currently in power understand that this cannot continue forever in terms of the people's rights. So we will continue to be engaged also in terms of the Inter-American Human Rights Commission, which has produced several reports on Nicaragua as well. So our solidarity is with the people of Nicaragua, and we call again on the authorities to unconditionally release all political prisoners.
Gracias, Secretaria General Junta.
Thank you, General Secretary, Chancellor, and ASG. Thank you all for staying up until this night, up until this hour. Thank you, Panama.